Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shields, devs, slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And let's go to this region called Nagorno-Karabakh that's resulted in this little war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And this is an interesting story to watch because of, first, its historical roots, and then second of all, because of this pattern of U.S. and Western destabilization of all these regions around Russia, including the Caucasus, where this is, and also the fact that any time we have a new war, obviously something is going on. So anyway, so there's a ceasefire now, so perhaps the war has been staved off for now. There's a little bit of confusion because of the fact that leaders of both countries were out of the country, and there's some speculation that this was merely some military units letting things get a little out of control. But when you look at the numbers, it's a little more than a little out of control, and it bespeaks of some perhaps destabilization efforts. So historically, let's look at the history. So first of all, we have the ceasefire, which has been in place, or the original ceasefire has been in place since 1994, because apparently between 1988 and 1994 there was a war between Azerbaijan and Armenia over this region, and 25,000 people are killed. So they mean business, and there's a very good potential for carnage in that region. And in 1991, in the middle of this conflict, Nagorno-Karabakh declared itself independent and a republic, but it's only recognized by 3 non-UN nations, so it hasn't really fared very well. So once again, one has to question why some regions get to declare this independence and other regions don't. And of course, the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, one of the things that's interesting when you look at a map, is it's situated well within Azerbaijan, and that's why it's such a complicated issue. And it's predominantly Armenian, 70% Armenian. So no wonder we continue to see this struggle between the Armenians and the Azerbaijans over this region. And one of the things historically that's interesting is that we see this same method that Western colonial powers used by dividing up ethnic regions in order to divide and conquer, control these regions. And so the Soviet Union was colonizing all of these Soviet republics the same way the West colonized all over the world. And in fact, in 1922, Stalin, as Commissar of Nationalities, assigned this region, Nagorno-Karabakh, in the west of Armenia, to Azerbaijan. And so the problems that we see there are baked in the cake, much like they are with Kurdistan being juxtaposed over 4 different countries, divided up between 4 different countries, and all over the post-colonial world in Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. And so the historical background is interesting there. And then, like I mentioned, there's a pretty fair amount of carnage. So the one article I read talked about the fact that Azerbaijan claims that 170 Armenian troops were killed and 12 armored vehicles destroyed, as well as 3 tanks. And Nagorno-Karabakh says that they killed over 300 Azerbaijan troops and 18 tanks were destroyed. So that's a fair amount of carnage for just a weekend. So wow. More than just a flare-up. But now we have another ceasefire called by Azerbaijan, and things seem to be quiet for the time being. But we certainly need to keep our eye on this because it smacks of some sort of Western intervention, and it's in that region that Western powers are currently involved in destabilizing, that include that in this case a juncture between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Russia, Turkey, Iran, and Georgia. And of course, there's a lot of potential for volatility in that region. But one of the reasons why I suggest that there's probably some Western destabilization efforts is NATO has been negotiating with both Armenia and Azerbaijan for bases in their countries. And Azerbaijan apparently agreed to a NATO base in March, and Armenia turned them down. And Azerbaijan is also an ally of Turkey, so that makes for a very complicated situation there. And one could easily see some more proxy wars being played out because of all these interconnections. The other part of the quotient that makes me think that potentially Western intervention going on is because we also have a lot of these ex-Soviet republics in Eurasia, including Azerbaijan, working with the World Bank and the IMF right now to bail out their economies because of the drop in oil prices. So the fact that we have these big players like NATO, the World Bank, and the IMF involved in these countries makes me think that potentially there could be more going on here. So anyway, a good reason to keep an eye on this new little war to see if it indeed gets nipped in the bud and was an aberration, or this is a continuing pattern of destabilization and regional conflicts like we see everywhere else. And so there we have it, Nagorno-Karabakh. It's gonna be in the news now, and another new region like Kurdistan that a lot of people never heard of, but they're hearing about it now. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.